Hello everyone, this is Enos with Elite Tire, and I am here with one of our longtime customers, Dave Krosov. Um, Dave, I was in the Army a couple years ago, got out in June of 2022, and I will let Dave kind of...
You're a newbie.
Right, yeah. That's what I'm kind of curious to
See
compare,
Yeah.
obviously you were
times, yeah.
the time difference in when you were in the
Sure.
service and from where I was in the service.
Absolutely. Well, I was in college trying to get an education, and my father had 4 boys, 3 remaining at home. Those 3 remaining at home meant he had no money to put me in college, so I had to go to work. So I worked my tail off trying to stay in college, but ran out of money. And then in April of '69, Uncle Sam came knocking. Because in those days, it was heavy. You got drafted if you weren't married or a teacher. So anyhow, I was drafted and went to basic training at Fort Campbell, Kentucky, home in the 101st Airborne Division. From there, I went to Fort Gordon, Georgia for AIT, Advanced Training, and that was going to be for MP school. So somehow 25 of us were not going to Korea for 18 months or 2 years. They got split up. So I wound up in Detroit, Michigan. Others went to Fort Sheridan, Illinois, some Fort Eustis, Virginia, some to New York City. These were either honor guard or AWOL apprehension. So mine was AWOL apprehension, and I got caught in Detroit for 8 or 9 months. And what an education from a small town Dover person to Detroit City in the throes of Vietnam. And what they did up there, there's a lot of crime, of course, in Detroit. So if you were charged with a breaking and entering, a non-felonious type crime, you wound up going before a judge who said, jail or the armed services. Well, jail didn't look good to these guys, so the Army was theirs. They went to the Army, and what happened is they would take off at the very first chance they got. They were gone. They were splitting. So they come back to the streets of greater Detroit or Michigan. Our job was to pick them up. They were turned in by their parents, grandparents, or picked up by the police. And then we had to go precinct to precinct primarily and pick them up, bring them back, put them in a detention cell, then send them to Fort Riley or Leavenworth, which were stockades, or they would go back to their company. We had a couple triple offenders, so they finally sent them away to be sequestered there. After that term, you never knew what was going to happen, but I served 1 year in Niesau Army Depot in the middle of nowhere in Germany.
Okay.
Small towns around here, real small, tiny little villages, were giants compared to where we were stationed. We had a 2-lane bowling alley, so we didn't get isolation pay. And wound up guarding a nuclear warhead facility and then shipping those to and fro sites all over Germany, up into Amsterdam, etc. And then in April '71, I came home. It was over. 2 years. And you?
Wow. So I joined in March of 2019, and obviously a very different time. I guess my expectation when I went in, just kind of my experience was basic training, and I grew up Amish. I had no idea what to expect.
Okay.
So I thought that, I was thinking Army, this is going to be like basic training. I had mentally prepared for absolute, like, the worst.
Oh, yeah.
And honestly, it was, for me, I don't know if it's just the way that I had mentally prepared for it. I thought it was easier than what I was expecting.
Okay.
Some parts weren't so easy.
Where'd your basic?
So I went to basic training in Fort Benning, Georgia.
Okay.
Yeah, it was hot,
Mm-hmm.
very, very warm. Probably I enjoyed basic training. It was the only thing that I didn't overly enjoy was at the end when we did the 15-mile ruck march with the whole bunch of equipment and stuff. That was very, very challenging there. But other than that, I mean, it wasn't too terrible. And then I got stationed in JBLN, which is out in Washington State. It's a joint base with the Army, Air Force, and I think there's even a small Marine group that's there. It's not a base, but there's some there.
Okay.
So some of the things that I got to do while I was in the Army, I never got deployed, but I got to do some training with the Special Forces, which was, I got to spend a month with them. That was an experience. My goodness. It's a lot of fun. We did some simulated training. Got to get dropped off of some Blackhawks into they had this abandoned prison that we had to go in and secure, basically. So they had, so the base I was on, there was Army Rangers, Special Forces, all kinds of people. So they sent the Rangers in to play, the bad guys.
Right.
And so we spent time with Special Forces, coming up with a game plan. We, practice this mission for 2 weeks, I think, 2 to 3 weeks. Well, it's pretty much a month, I guess. Where we went over, just going over everything.
War games.
Yeah. And we did everything from like medical training to combat to the works. It was pretty interesting to work with.
Did these guys all have overseas duty at one time, like Iraq or Afghanistan or anything like that?
Oh yeah.
That's what I figured.
Yeah, these guys were the real deal.
They're seasoned.
Yeah, made me feel like I didn't know anything when I started working with them. But no, that was a very interesting experience. That, and then when the wildfires broke out in California, what was it, 2021?
21, I think.
Yeah, I believe so. We were called out to help out with. They brought in professional wildland firefighters, smoke jumpers, and stuff like that. So I got to work with a really good crew. Learned a lot about wildfires as well while I was in the Army.
I would imagine. Yeah.
That was an interesting experience. But yeah, and then I was stationed there my entire time, and like I said, I got out in June of 2022.
Okay.
A little bit different from. I'd be interested to hear your basic training experience, just because of the stories that I've heard and what I was expecting to go into, and then
I don't know. Well, I do know. The 101st Airborne, like the 82nd or all the other airborne, they're usually pretty crazy. They are training hard all the time. You would run from point A to B. You ran everywhere. You ran. And when we put on full loads, helmet, backpack, rifle, we'd have to run to the range and back. Everyone dreaded that because it wasn't like 2 blocks. It was miles out. Now they did stop us and let us get our breath and then come back. But the training was pretty hairy.
Yeah.
And those 25 of us that got sent to different locations within the states, we all signed up for airborne school. Since we're at the 101st Airborne, we'll go ahead and we'll begin in jump school. Well, you take their PT test, and that was a test. That was a rough one. Everyone passed, came back, and the company commander goes, all right, how many dumb people are here? 25 of you, jumping out of a perfectly good airplane. You work with me and I'll get you out of your jump school, which he did. So at the end of basic, he came to us, and that's when he told us, I don't know what happened. You're probably going to go to Vietnam. That's where you're headed, because you walked out of jump school. Came back that 5 days before he left. You're going here, here's your orders. He just said, you're the luckiest 25 guys in this unit. But it was pretty rough. AIT, nothing. The food in basic was eat it and run. They could feed 170 some guys in 15 minutes. You ran in the door, sat down, shoveled, and out the door, and they're screaming at you to get your food in and get out of here. AIT in Georgia, they had civilian cooks, and the food was incredibly good, just delicious. But we were supposedly just going to be MPs anyhow. We weren't grunts or anything. So that part of it was okay, but the fear of Vietnam was always in everyone's mind at that time, because it was kind of 3/4 of the way through, and it ended, Vietnam ended in what, 73 or 74 completely. They got out, but there was still quite a bit of fighting over that. A lot of my friends who I graduated with had gone to Vietnam. One was killed in action. One here locally in town has 2 or 3 silver stars for bravery.
Wow.
But he won't talk about it. He won't go to veterans events or anything. He stays totally away from it. He's washed that out of his system. And today being Veterans Day, which is kind of neat, you know, there's so many good opportunities for us veterans for food. Wendy's, I think Shoney's, and a few others. You go to Bueller's, you get your donuts. If you want donuts, they give you a donut.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah. So I was at Guy Funeral Home up in North Dover. They had breakfast for veterans. All you had to do is call, sign up, and go up and eat. And they had a great breakfast. They really did. But the Army, I think the one thing it taught me more than anything was discipline, structure. You know, you got up at this time, you got dressed at this time, you did this at this time, and you were all the same. You know this because you go in, you get the same uniform, you get the same haircut. You're part of a group. You're not an individual anymore, and you depend on these people around you.
Right.
Very much so. So overall, it was a great learning experience. But I would say Germany wasn't so hot because you were in a. Am I going on too long here?
No,
you're in a box. You're in a tower between 2 rows of fence, and they're 20 foot high, and then there's razor wire on the top. And it's all around a perimeter of earthen bunkers full of nuclear warheads. And you were on 12, off 12. Noon to midnight, midnight to noon, 24/7. There's a shortage of people, so you didn't get days off. You had to do it. So you rotated in the box. They'd come around, give you a break, you go back to like a break room where you could nap, play cards, listen to music. And it was boring for the most part, extremely boring. We had travel restrictions, which meant no traveling to Paris or anywhere else. I did get into Switzerland, which was wonderful. Yeah. Thank you, Uncle Sam. Went to the Eagle's Nest, which was a great experience. Detroit probably was the one that gave you an education about life, because where I lived, there were sirens all night long and gunshots and screams in the neighborhood. I lived in the hood, in some rough territory. Had no choice. There were no barracks where I was stationed. And so you had to either get a car or take the bus to work. And it got a little tenuous at times. I can tell you more stories, but I don't think we want to air those today. And there were a couple testy situations, but we were told as soon as we got there by our company commander that you were to go downtown to the 1st precinct, and it's a big police station, and you were going to get a gun to carry off duty because you couldn't take your military sidearm 45. So you had to do that because a couple of the guys were caught by AWOLs that had come back, and they jumped and put one guy in the hospital for a month. And he said, this isn't going to happen again. You shoot them and we'll take care of business after that. So they got a little nerve-wracking at times.
Yeah, I bet.
Definitely.
Yeah.
But overall, I mean, I probably, looking back at my age now, probably should have stayed in because they wanted me to go to OCS, Officers Candidate School.
Right.
They saw my test scores, you're going to go in. And I said, no, I'm going to do my 2, get out. And I didn't follow what my father had told me. He had been in World War II. And he finally got his field commission as a captain. He went to OCS.
Okay.
He wished he would have stayed in. And I do now too, because if I would have come out probably a full colonel at a much younger age than I am now, and enjoy life and have a second career. And the government was going to pay a nice pension and probably put me through college, balance of college, etc. Wasn't that smart. Still probably not that smart. But that's the only regret I really have about not staying in, not going to OCS. And my dad will never forget the day I was headed to, it was for my physical up in Cleveland. Put me on the bus in downtown Dover. I could see tears in my dad's eyes. Rarely did he ever cry. But he knew what he experienced for 3 years in Germany.
Yeah.
Some really rough times. Because he came up, he was in an engineer battalion, and he came upon one of the concentration camps. His group was the first to come down the road. They all looked at each other and they wondered, what was this odor? Strange. And they got there and looked, and they were in shock. Well, they radioed back to the company commander, who said, you keep moving, we'll take care of it. And the rear guard came up and took care of business, but they had to keep building roads and bridges to keep the army moving. And he said, you talk about very scary, very intimidating, and very nerve-wracking. He said, our nerves were shot for a whole day from what we saw. We just couldn't believe it. Pretty rough.
Wow.
So he cried because he felt he didn't want me to go through what he had to go through.
Right.
You know, and fortunately I didn't. That made him a little happier. My 3 brothers, that's back when they started doing your, what was it, birth date or whatever, and they all had super high numbers. One was like 302, the other was 292, so they were so far down the food chain they weren't going to get called. And they didn't. So that's my story.
Yeah, so definitely a little bit more exciting than what I had. For the most part, outside of working with special forces, and then like I said, that was, I really enjoyed that. That was pretty incredible. The way those guys work, and
dedication.
Yeah,
you had to be on it. See, we had a couple 101st Rangers in our group that were our drill sergeants, and they were wicked. I mean, you towed the line, and I mean towed the line. They were, and most of them were short, heavy, big no necks, all muscle, and go, I'm in the wrong place. I'm 130 pounds. What am I going to do here? And they worked you out. They worked and worked and worked you till all hours. It was quite a period of time for me. It was good, but again, probably wish hindsight's always 20/20. Wish I would have stayed in, but hey, it's game over. It's 2024. I'm a veteran. You're a veteran. People need to know more and assess more, and I pray maybe the new administration will look more favorably on the veterans.
Yeah.
Get them the help they need, from health care to accommodations to live. I forget what I heard in the radio today. There were 120 suicides in Ohio last year, or 2023, I'm sorry, from veterans who were homeless or had no hope. PSTD, all of those maladies. Some of them were probably wounded, couldn't get the help they needed. I just think and pray that things get better for all of them. Because I may be one of them someday. I don't know. I hope not, but just never know. So I'm thankful for being able to serve the country, as probably like you.
Oh yeah, I didn't get drafted like you. I don't know. I always had an interest in the military, and I always thought it was incredible that people will, in my day and age, volunteer.
Right.
And it's something that I wanted to do. I wanted to be a part of.
Sure.
And I'm glad I did. if it wouldn't have been for the business, I probably would have stayed in, but
Right.
I wanted to come back and rejoin my brothers in the business, and but I learned a lot, lots of discipline.
That's a big one.
Yeah.
That is big.
I
Yeah.
still wake up at 5 o'clock every morning, but yeah, I learned a lot, and I want to take a little bit of time to just appreciate you. Thank you for your service,
Thank you.
and a shout out to all the veterans. God bless, and yeah, hopefully, like you mentioned, I hope they get the new administration puts the things in place that need to be done.
Priorities.
Yes,
this
so they
looks
can.
yeah.
I was fortunate enough not to be injured or anything like that, but there's a lot of veterans that have, and well, actually, one of my friends, he was injured pretty badly. I'm not going to go into too much detail, but I know for him he waited a year just to be able to see a doctor to take care of some things that
Qualified doctors. You know
yeah,
what I mean? You
right.
can get some doctors and they can't take good care of you the way they should.
Yeah. So hopefully things will turn around and get a little bit better. So. Well, thank you for coming in today.
Thanks,
it was
Enos.
interesting to hear your story.
Sure.
And
hopefully I didn't overtalk you.
no, you're fine. You're
Okay.
fine. I've known you for a little while now, and I've never really, to be quite honest, I didn't even realize you were a veteran.
Well,
I don't talk about it a whole lot.
And I only do it when people who know me know I was a veteran.
Yeah.
No, I don't go out and tell them I'm a veteran unless they ask, were you in the service? I said, yeah,
Right.
where? When? Oh, I was in the Navy. So now we have to have these
that
two
conversation.
weird conversations. Or I was a Marine. In fact, I had 3 good friends that graduated the same year from Dover St. Joe's.
Okay.
And back then, the elementary school here in town, the Catholic school, was high school as well. They graduated same year. Well, they went in the Marine Corps, and I went in the Army.
Okay.
And well, I got drafted. They were in the Marines, but they were in for, I think, 4 years. So basically, we came out about the same time.
Okay.
So college and I, we didn't agree. Money didn't agree, and it kind of segued its place and came out that way. So,
Yeah.
but and thank you for the business here. You've treated me well. Oh my golly, I can't complain. Brakes are doing well.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. I appreciate you saying that.
Yeah.
That's the goal.
Yeah,
So.
it worked. It worked. So, I hear anything else, I'll let you know. I'm local, so thanks for everything. Thanks
You're
for
very
your
welcome.
service.
Thank you.
Thanks, Danny.